On August 8th, almost 1 month ago, a wildfire raged through the Hawaiian town of Lahaina on the island of Maui. This has been one of the worst disasters in U.S. history. Although it has been a month, the mainstream media is still not covering this story. So, we're going to cover it here, this week, on Wolves in Finance. I'm going to start by showing you some images of the aftermath. The town is completely destroyed. 2,200 structures were destroyed on 2,170 acres. One of the things that made this fire so bad is that many of these buildings had propane tanks that exploded. The fire burned so hot that everything burned up. There is nothing left. Let us start with the conspiracy theory. People have been claiming that the fire was set intentionally. They claim that evil billionaires wanted to steal the land from native Hawaiians. People like Oprah and Jeff Bezos are well known for their attempts to buy land on Maui. The theory claims that the billionaires are working together with the CIA and started the fire using space lasers. These same billionaires also have houses with blue roofs. The strange color of blue is said to stop the electromagnetic effects of the space lasers. The goal is to implement the plans of the World Economic Forum to rebuild Lahaina as a 15-minute smart city. This would be a new type of city that does not allow residents to go more than 15 minutes away. It is powered by infrastructure like facial recognition cameras, 5G cell towers, and roadblocks. It is all run by artificial intelligence that would lock the citizens inside as prisoners under the justification of climate change. Meanwhile, a global crisis would cause massive depopulation around the world. Millions would die through war and famine, and the global elite would live through the chaos on their massive estates on Hawaii, while the local population would be locked away in the 15-minute city. To accomplish all of this, they just had to get rid of Lahaina. Now, I don't believe this conspiracy theory, but it is resonating with people because some of it has already come true. The governor issued an emergency proclamation on August 19th that no one could make unsolicited offers to buy land in the affected zip codes in order to allow residents time to recover. But rich developers have simply been ignoring the law. Authorities have received 8 complaints of developers trying to buy the land. The governor himself has offered to buy up the land. He said, "I'm already thinking of ways for the state to acquire that land so that we can put it into workforce housing, to put it back into families, or make it open spaces in perpetuity as a memorial to the people who were lost." Why is everyone trying to take this land? I have to say, it is a little strange to paint the roof of your house blue. Why would you do that? My roof isn't blue. Is yours? The reason I don't believe this conspiracy theory is because I think there's a more likely explanation. It is possible that the government officials were just incompetent. The fire could have started and the officials froze like a deer in the headlight. They didn't know what to do and were too afraid to do anything because it might make matters worse. So they just stood there and watched the town burn down. I think this is the most likely explanation because we saw a similar thing happen before during the disaster of Hurricane Katrina. Do you remember that? A hurricane broke the levee surrounding New Orleans and flooded the city. It killed 1,836 people. Tens of thousands of people were left stranded with little food, water, or shelter. People were living in the Superdome for a week. There were dead bodies scattered on the ground. Many people blamed the incompetence of the head of FEMA, Michael Brown, who was appointed by George W. Bush. Michael Brown's prior work experience was as the head of the Arabian Horse Association. It is unclear what made him qualified to run FEMA. Kanye West went on national TV and said, "George Bush doesn't care about black people." I think what Hurricane Katrina showed us is that sometimes the government is not good at handling disasters. These are the things that have never happened before. Sometimes government employees are incompetent. Sometimes they make bad decisions. I think the same thing happened in Lahaina. It was a horrible disaster, and the government was just not good at handling the disaster. The biggest example of this is that almost a month later, we still do not have a definitive death count. After a month, we have no idea how many people died. That's pretty incompetent. As of last week, 115 people are confirmed dead. The FBI is helping with the investigation and has announced that 385 people are still missing. Now, if someone has been missing for a month at this point, most likely they're dead. Part of the problem is that there's no bodies. Normally, you could walk around after a disaster and count the bodies. But in this case, the bodies were burned up, so there are no bodies to count. What has created a lot of controversy is that the death toll keeps changing. I explained that the FBI said that 385 people are missing, but 2 weeks ago, on August 21st, the Hawaii Department of Education released a statement saying that 2,025 children were still missing. The local school in Lahaina had burned down in the fire, so all the children who went to that school had to be reassigned to other districts. As of August 21st, 2,025 children had either not reported or the school district had been unable to locate them. Where are the missing children? The FBI is controlling the missing persons list. How is the FBI getting their names of missing people? Have they checked on the 2,025 missing kids? Or are they ignoring them? Let's think about this. What do we know about the FBI? We know that they are liars. They have lied to the American people multiple times now to protect the Biden administration. Just as an example, the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray, just went in front of Congress and lied under oath about a memo the FBI wrote about targeting Catholics as terrorists. Do you remember this? He apologized and claimed that the memo was a single product by a single field office out of Richmond. Well, after his testimony, a new version of the memo surfaced that showed the memo was a product of multiple field offices, including Portland and Los Angeles. This was a nationwide effort by the FBI to target Catholics. Christopher Wray lied about it in front of Congress and committed perjury. I think it is a possibility that the FBI is lying again. They could be hiding the number of dead kids so Joe Biden doesn't look bad. Can we at least get an explanation of why two government agencies are telling us vastly different numbers? I think it's likely that the death count is going to be a lot higher than they're reporting, and a lot of the deaths are going to be from children. Just like George W. Bush was criticized for Katrina, Joe Biden has been criticized for Lahaina. It started off by Joe Biden getting the news of the disaster while he was on vacation in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. So far, Joe Biden has spent 40% of his time in office on vacation. This alone is staggering. I'm betting if you went into work and asked your boss if you could spend 40% of your time on vacation, you would get fired. Don't you think that running the United States of America would require you to be at work more than 60% of the time? But somehow, Sleepy Joe gets 40% of his time off. So he's on vacation in Delaware, and reporters ask him about all the people who had died in Hawaii. He responds, No comment. What? No comment? This is one of the largest disasters in the history of the country, and Joe Biden acts like he doesn't care. So Joe Biden finishes his vacation in Delaware, but he still does not go to Hawaii. Do you know what he does? He goes on another vacation in Lake Tahoe. He finally visited Hawaii on August 21st, 2 weeks after the wildfire. Then he goes to the disaster site where he gives a speech. And in the speech, he talks about how he can relate to the victims because he went through the same thing. A lightning strike caught his house on fire. He almost lost his house. The firefighters almost died. His wife almost died. And he almost lost his Corvette in the fire. Except none of those things actually happened. It turns out it was a lie. There was a lightning strike, but it caused a small kitchen fire, which was quickly put out. So Joe Biden is talking to these people who have lost everything. Their family members are dead, and he is lying to their face, making it all about him because he almost lost his Corvette. Except he didn't. His Corvette was never really in danger. What is so infuriating is that even after people have called him out for this horrible lie, Joe Biden keeps telling the story. Just last week, he told the story again about his fake house fire. The people of Hawaii are mad. There's a video of him driving through Hawaii, and the people on the sides of the road are swearing at him. And in case you didn't know, Hawaii is overwhelmingly Democrat. So if Joe Biden is losing support in Hawaii, he has a big problem. I think, just like in Hurricane Katrina, we need Kanye West to go on television and say, Joe Biden hates Hawaiian people. So how did this happen? There are still going to be investigations, but we do know that there are a number of things that went wrong. There were issues with the power lines. It is important to understand that there were two fires. There was a fire in the morning and then a fire later in the day that would burn down the town. The power company has admitted that they started the first fire. There were strong winds that blew down power lines and the sparks started the fire. Firefighters arrived and put out the first fire and then left. People do not know what started the second fire. The power company did turn the power back onto the lines, which were still down, so that could have sparked more fires. But the power company blames the firefighters for leaving before the fire was fully put out. The firefighters blame the power company. The power company has not explained yet why they would turn the power back on if they knew the lines were still down. However the second fire started, it resulted in the town burning down. Next, the children had been let out of school. This is what made the fire so devastating because so many children were involved. It was normal to send the children home because there were extremely high winds which had already knocked down the power lines and shut the power off. So many of the parents were away at work and the children were sitting at home while the fire burned. That is why so many children died. The alarm warning system did not go off. The town has sirens that they test once per month. These were installed mainly in case of a tsunami, but they are used for other disasters as well. When the sirens go off, the residents know to go out of their homes because they may need to run for their lives. It turns out that a decision was made to not sound the alarm. Maui County's Emergency Management Administrator says he did not sound the alarm because he did not want people to get confused and run towards the fire. The problem was that if you were a kid and you're at home from school playing video games in your house, you're not going to know a fire is raging all around you. If the alarms had gone off, the people would have at least come outside their houses and figured out what was going on. What is so infuriating is that this is still a problem. Since Lahaina, there have been other wildfires in other parts of Maui. Those fires were not as devastating, but more buildings have burnt down. And once again, they decided not to sound the alarms. Why are they doing this? If a town is burning down, sound the alarms. We know it would have saved lives. So I don't understand why they're not doing it, other than to try and justify their actions in Lahaina. But it is continuing to put more people's lives at risk. Next, the fire hydrants did not work. So the firefighters showed up, but they could not get any water out of the hydrants. So far, we don't know the reason why, but we do know that the firefighters did not do anything to try and stop the fire because they had no water. We also know that officials refused to release water to fight the fire. The deputy director of the Hawaii Commission for Water Resource Management received the request for more water to fight the fire. He initially refused the request in order to check if users downstream would be affected by the diversion. So rather than just release the water, this guy had to check to make sure it would be equitable for everyone. Meanwhile, people were dying. Permission was eventually granted 5 hours too late. What made matters worse is that the police were blocking the roads out of town, trapping everyone inside. At least one account said that one road was blocked with chains, keeping people from leaving. It is unclear who gave these orders and why, but there were people who were sitting in their cars trying to get out of town, and the police were telling them to wait inside their cars. Everyone who waited in their cars was burned alive. Some of the people left their cars in the road, jumped in the ocean, and survived. In this situation, all the people who complied with what the government was telling them to do died. The people who did not listen to the cops stayed alive. All of these things together made this disaster so bad. The investigations are still ongoing, and more information will likely be uncovered. There's something else that I want to highlight that I don't hear anybody else talking about. So I've looked at a lot of these photographs of the ruins of Lahaina, and I noticed something interesting. Do you notice anything about this photograph? There is one large major building that was not destroyed by the fires. This is the Lahaina Shores Beach Resort, and it's owned by Hyatt Hotels. It is a giant hotel that is in the middle of Lahaina, right on the beach. And so it's curious to me that when the rest of the entire town burned down, this building remains standing. How is that possible? You know, when we think about how the water in the hydrants had no pressure, you have to wonder, were the hydrants around this hotel working? And it could be the case, now I don't know this for sure, but it could be the case that water was routed to this hotel first before the rest of the town. And the water system could be designed this way. The water system could be designed to give favoritism to the big beach resorts. Maybe even the beach resorts paid for this. So it could just be something inherent to how the social structure of that city was developed, where these big tourist hotspots would take all the water resources and not leave anything for the residents. Well, what would result would be this photograph where the rest of the town is devastated and this hotel remains standing. I think this photograph is evidence of what's actually going on in Lahaina. And it doesn't even have to be anything suspicious. It's just that the hotels get preferential treatment and the residents get screwed. Joe Biden continues to receive criticism for the fires. This time, it is for the lack of support during the recovery process. The survivors of the fire are going to receive a one-time government check for $700. That doesn't even cover 1 month's rent for people. These people have lost everything, and it's confusing to me why the government is not helping. Meanwhile, Joe Biden just announced a $250 million aid package to Ukraine. Just last week, the Pentagon announced a new $600 million aid package to Ukraine. Also, Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced another $1 billion in new military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Then Joe Biden has also announced that he wants to send an additional $21 billion more to Ukraine that he wants Congress to approve. As a reminder, we now have sent over $113 billion to Ukraine. This is a lot of money going to Ukraine, and he's only giving Hawaiians $700? Joe Biden has given no explanation of why he's giving so much money to a foreign country while ignoring his own citizens. He's also not explained why Ukraine just happens to be the same country that his family has made millions of dollars from foreign business dealings. Now, when Joe Biden was criticized for only giving $700, the response was that his hands were tied. There was nothing more he could do. $700 was the cap. FEMA is only allowed to give up to $700 to help survivors. But you and I both know that's just not true. You only have to look at the government responses from other disasters to see that there are other places that the president could have pulled money from in the past. Maybe he could have pulled some of this Ukraine money and given it to Hawaii. Once again, it looks like Joe Biden is a liar. Only this time, his lies are causing the Hawaiian people to suffer. However, to be fair, just last week, Joe Biden says that he also wants to send $95 million to Lahaina as part of a new infrastructure law. But this won't be money to give to the residents. No, no, no. The people will not get anything. This money is only for the government. It's going to be controlled by the government to rebuild infrastructure. Joe Biden's going to install underground power lines and an updated grid controlled by artificial intelligence. He wants the government to design a new city infrastructure using the latest technology. It almost sounds like he's using the money to create a 15-minute city. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think of Joe Biden's response to the wildfires in Maui? If you have any information, go ahead and leave it in the comments so that people know what is going on. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. There are more videos coming out that you don't want to miss. Also, I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who has signed up for memberships for the channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel, go to my website, wolvesandfinance.com. You can sign up for $6 a month. I'm always struggling with YouTube demonetizing my videos, so if you want to support the channel, if you feel like these videos help you, please consider signing up for a membership today. Thank you very much. I'm Zach from Wolves and Finance. Thank you for watching.